How do I talk to myself? What words do I use? And what's the power in my vocabulary? And I honestly have seen, in my experience as a medical intuitive, what I realized is how often someone could not get off the hamster's wheel of pain and suffering because they did not understand the power of the vocabulary they were using. They consciously did not, and they refused to let go of the negative vocabulary because they feared the power of the positive vocabulary. And that goes to show, that proved to me again and again that in our inherent knowledge that we're born with, we know the power of every word we choose to say and every word we choose to use to frame the experiences we are having or the experiences we want to have. So that co-creation actually begins by the deep process of self-knowledge and self-awareness and looking at how shall I look at this situation? What words do I choose to see this? I can transform the world I'm in by what words the lens through which I see this. I don't require outside money. I don't require any of this. If I say to myself, what can I do? I need to transform that question to, but how shall I see this? But how shall I think about this? What words do I need to release that are draining me and hemorrhaging of my capacity to see this in a different way?
Let's get specific, Carolyn, because you said as a medical intuitive, you saw examples of this. Give me an example of someone who was using a certain vocabulary with themselves that was keeping the person stuck and not healing.
Well, the classic would be woundology. When someone insists on staying within the power of the wound language and using the word but you don't understand, but you just don't have all the facts. But it would be so difficult. The but language, the always finding excuses for not proceeding with an empowering vocabulary, such as, yes, I'll do that. I will. And the two words that are really, there's a vocabulary that completely drains a person without a doubt. But, try, deserve, blame, entitled. Those words, that but, try, deserve, blame, and entitled. Those 5 words will drain you of all your power. And that's how much power you have. When we talk about transforming a situation, you can transform so much in your life by deciding, I'm not going to include those words in how I talk to myself. If someone said to you, I'll tell you what, why don't you use this discipline to heal? Get up in the morning and the first thing, honestly, make your bed. Just make your bed. Create a healing environment around you. Walk, do something to move your body, to do something positive. If you respond with but, you're already sabotaging. It's a strong saboteur. And you promise yourself, I'm not going to say that anymore. I'm not going to fight a positive suggestion. I'm going to say, okay, all right, I'll do it. I may not want to do it, but I will. I will cross that Rubicon and engage in thoughts and in words that have the capacity to transform me. And if I can transform a part of me that is sabotaging my power, then that transformation engages different currents of health.
You know, Carolyn, when we created this series, The Great Transformation, together, I had the great opportunity to ask you questions at the end of each of these awakenings that you taught on. And then I had a chance to ask you some questions. And one of the things that I really kept wanting to put under a magnifying glass is your work as a medical intuitive and what the patterns are that you see and how some of your insights came from seeing those patterns. And at one point you were talking about psychic weights that people carry with them throughout their life, grievances about the past. And you said it's not so much what happens to people, but it's how they view what happens to them that really matters. And that was a moment for me. That was like all these bells started ringing when you said that to me. That it's not so much what happens, it's how you view what happens. And I want to share this because afterwards I went and I thought about a very painful experience in my own very, very, very early life, first few months of my life, the way I'd been telling that story over and over, the way I'd been viewing it. And I'd created a whole world around it. And I came up after being inspired by this Great Transformation series of it naturally happened of re-envisioning it as an actual launching pad for my life, that this event was actually, anyway, so I think this is such an important point, and I want to understand how, as a medical intuitive, you came to this realization that it's how we see the event that is really the important thing.
Well, excuse me, I eventually, and it was a long track, Tami, I refused to take that position, you know, when people would say, why is God doing this to me? Why is God doing this to me? I do not have, I cannot buy this idea that there is some off-planet God that sends us trials and difficulties and is doing things to us, this very Christian notion. I just don't buy that. And through the years of my life, I've really come to believe that this universe is very impersonal, and yet very intimate. So both are true. And therein lies the holy paradox. And so when I look through that first huge cosmic lens, that life is an incredibly impersonal journey in which the events that happen to us, while many at the intimate level are deeply painful, they're not personal. But what they do have, but they form a kind of commonality that this is what human beings experience. That so long as there is fear, and so long as there is greed, so long as there is vengeance, these experiences are going to exist in abundance. And none of us is safe or immune from these experiences flowing in and out of our own lives. And so from that point of view, experiences can be seen as, in the Buddhist language, impersonal, just totally impersonal. What matters is how we respond to them. And I acknowledge here that a great many of life experiences are extremely difficult to see impersonally. Theft, murder, rape. I mean, none of this feels impersonal. None of it does, because it's quite intimate and quite personal when things happen. Incest, violations, they're horrible. And yet, at another level, and this is where that incredible journey of the soul comes in. You have to stand in that moment and say, this is either going to make me incredibly bitter, or I have to get better. I don't have another choice here. I can either believe I'm the only one that this has ever happened to, or I can say this is what happens in the human experience because there is darkness and no light. Now, which am I? And both are pain, both are difficult, but one is a route to pain the rest of your life, to suffering the rest of your life. And the other is painful because you have to work your way through cracking this small, transforming yourself from this notion that you're the only one who's ever, and that you're this somehow or other, justice belongs to you. And that's a major part of this, that justice, you'll spend the rest of your life looking for justice and getting your comeuppance. Or you look and think, I have to transform myself from this craving because I think I'm the center of the universe, because I think I'm the only one this has ever happened to. I have to find a way out of that sense of entitlement that my life should have been otherwise, and find my way to the journey of life itself, to the journey of there's other forces in life, to the journey through that door of forgiveness. And that is the burning fire of transformation. I have to not let the experiences that happen to me make me into the experience I had that turned me into this. I cannot become vengeful and bitter and all of that. I cannot. And somehow that is a test that finds its way to all human beings. And that is the fodder for transformation.